People don't understand the day-to-day stuff that it takes away. Something as simple as using a zip tie. Something as simple as putting your Christmas stuff in a tote. You think about it every day. And those days when it first happened, you wake up and you forget about it for a split second. Because it's like, it's so wild, you can't believe it. And then the reality to hit you every single time was excruciating.
As far as I'm concerned, as the sheriff of this county, underneath the jail ain't good enough. He has no right to walk the face of this earth. I hate to be him when he stands before the Lord. But unfortunately, there's nothing I can do to bring those children back.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to All Things True Crime. In this episode, we are diving back into the case of Casei Jones and her 4 children, Preston, Cameron, Macaulay and Ayanna. We will hear from Casey's sister Sarah on the after effects of this crime and preparing for the upcoming trial later in this video. Before we hear from Sarah, let's go back to the summer of 2019 and review what we know so far. Casei was living with her second husband Michael and her 4 children. Her oldest 2 children, Cameron, 9, and Preston, 4, are from a previous relationship with a man named Richard. Her 2 youngest children, Macaulay, 2, and Ayanna, 1, are Michael's. The couple and their children were living in Summerfield, Florida. In order to understand evidence presented in this case, we need to look at Michael's police interview. The police interview was heavily redacted, but the police reports detail what he says. In Michael's police interview, he discloses that on July 10th, Casei accuses Michael of cheating and an argument begins. He alleges that she picks up a metal baseball bat and pushes him. He confesses to hitting her with the metal baseball bat numerous times. According to the medical examiner reports, Casei died of blunt force trauma. There were no other signs of injury. Instead of calling police, Michael decides to pretend Casei is still alive. For 6 weeks, Michael uses Casey's phone to communicate via text with family and friends. During this time, on July 27th, Cameron and Preston go to their father's for a period of 2 weeks. A few days later, Nikki, Casey's mother, reported that she receives a text message asking for her to look after Macaulay and Ayanna for a few days. This ends up extending to a 2-week period after Nikki receives a text message from Casey's number saying she is sick. During this time, Ayanna turns 1. On August 10th, Richard drops Cameron and Preston off to Michael. This is the last time he will see his children alive. On August 14th, Michael picks up Macaulay and Ayanna. During this time, Michael does all the drop-off and pick-ups of the children. You'll hear brand new evidence in Sarah's interview about an interaction between Michael and Richard that frankly left me speechless. I also want to add here that after these events happened, Richard tells police that Cameron has told him in the past Michael was abusive towards Casei. Michael doesn't give police specific dates, but he says between August 10th and the 22nd, he kills Cameron and Preston. Now, I'm about to describe the nature of the children's murders. I'll leave a timestamp on the screen if you wish to skip this. Michael kills Cameron and Preston first. Whilst Preston is asleep in the next bed, Michael strangles Cameron. He places his knee on Cameron's chest to prevent him from breathing. He then places Cameron in a suitcase. The next night, Michael kills Preston. Michael decides to use zip ties that he has at home on Preston because his hands were so sore from strangling Cameron the night before. Don't even get me started on that. Michael placed a zip tie around Preston's neck and made it tight. He then carried Preston into the bath and proceeded to drown him. He placed Preston in a plastic garbage bag. On August 28th, Michael kills Macaulay and Ayanna. He drowns both girls and places them together in a plastic tote bin. He uses kitty litter during the 6-week period to absorb the bodily fluids from all 5 bodies. Sarah Jones, Michael's first wife, has a part to play in this as well. The two share children together, and during this time he goes back and forth to Sarah's home. On August 30th, Michael goes to the home to stay during Hurricane Dorian. When asked by police if Sarah had seen Casey, she lied, as prompted to by Michael. I must emphasise, however, that Sarah had nothing to do with the murders. Sarah would tell police the truth, eventually, when she understood the gravity of the events. The person to blame for this tragedy is Michael, so let's place the blame where it belongs. On September 14th, Nikki contacts the police to ask for a welfare check and report them all as missing. In the interview with Casey's sister, you will hear why the family didn't pick up anything for 6 weeks. When Casey didn't post on Facebook for Cameron's birthday or answer calls from Richard on Preston's birthday, family knew something was wrong. During this time, Casey and Michael were being evicted from their home for not paying their rent. Neighbours reported an awful smell to the property manager. Once Michael left the property, they went inside and cleaned it, recalling it smelling as something had died inside. They needed to place fans inside to air out the smell, and they replaced things in the home and added new flooring. Michael had to clear the home out of the physical possessions and sold twin mattresses to someone through Facebook. Once the case became public, the woman who purchased these mattresses reached out to the police to let her know about their interaction. She said she purchased the mattresses in August and they smelt like death. She needed to clean them numerous times to get the smell and the stains out. When police announced the 5 victims as missing, Michael decided it was time to move the bodies. Up until this point, they were all in the car whilst he was staying in Jacksonville with Sarah and their children. He drove to Georgia and placed the children in nearby woods. A witness saw Michael driving at high speeds and he ended up having an accident. When police arrived at the scene, he admitted that his wife's body, Casey, was in the car. Michael was charged with 1 count of murder in the 2nd degree for Casey and 4 counts of murder in the 1st degree for the children. Jury selection begins on the 5th of December, with the trial then starting on the 8th. This is a death penalty case, so there'll be a sentencing phase as well, and that begins on January 5th. This will determine if Michael Wayne Jones Jr. should be sentenced to life or death. Okay, I'm absolutely done with Michael. Let's not see him again in this video. Let's focus on the people that matter, and that's the victims and their families. This new series, Behind the Crime, gives us a chance to hear from the families. Sarah, Casey's sister, was so real and raw about her experience. I hope you will listen and send her so much love in the comments.
Any question that you have, I am up for answering.
I want to know a little bit. Can you tell me a little bit about Casey's childhood?
Yeah, we were raised with my mom. My mom had us 3 girls. My grandma, a majority of the time, lived with us. I don't remember a whole lot of time where my grandmother didn't live with us. There's a few times that she'd go for a little bit and then she was right back home.
How was there a lot of, was it just an easy, fairly going childhood? Was there any problems? Did Casey have any problems?
Okay, so like I said, I'm going to be 100% honest. I'm going to be very open because that's just who I am. Casey was a very happy-go-lucky child. There wasn't a whole lot that brought Casey down, but our upbringing, if you want to put it into, Brandy was the favorite, which was the oldest. Casey was the second favorite, and I was just not liked. My mother, she would, if she ever did hit Brandy or Casey, it was like once a year type thing. You know what I mean? It was very once in a blue moon. It didn't happen very often, but when she did, it was a busted lip. They were bleeding or something of the sorts. But I would say a majority of the time, it was them watching me get beat on. Mine was almost a daily basis.
Oh,
Um, I was actually put in foster care
only you?
because of it. Yes, the others were not pulled out. It was actually, from what the courts told me, my mother had actually had Casey admit that she was the one that did it. And that's why I was supposed to go home after 2 weeks. But once they started seeing how my mom was acting when she would come to court, and they did a test on her for a chemical imbalance, and it was proved that she had a chemical imbalance, and they would not let me go home after that. So, but
And
yeah,
your mum wanted Casey to claim that she was the one that hit you.
yes, Casey was very young. I was 15 and Casey was almost, well, almost 12, 13. She was very, very little when I left. And Casey admitted it. I mean, what was
Yeah.
she going to do? So, but she stayed there till she was probably 16, I think. And then she moved in with her first husband, Richard, and his parents when she was like 16. But it was pretty rough. At least, for me, I would say it was rough for them to watch it just as much.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. I'm so sorry that that happened to you.
thank you.
It's rough. And so then she was with her first husband.
Hmm.
That she ended up having Preston and Cameron with him. Then their relationship ended.
It did. Their relationship, I think it was, the high school, just you're in love and there's nobody else. And then they just kind of grew out of that. And their relationship was, it just seemed like it was more of the reason they stayed together for so long. It was like, oh, for the kids, or oh, for appearances, who wants to get a divorce? Who wants that on their resume? So
Yeah.
I think it was kind of like stay together for the looks of it and for the kids, and they just couldn't do it anymore. And, you know, they split.
So after they split, how long between that did she meet Michael?
To be honest, she, if I'm not mistaken, she actually had an affair with Michael when she was married, and that was part of the reason that
Oh,
they got the
okay.
divorce. So,
Okay.
um, they got together pretty quickly afterwards,
Do you know how they
officially.
met? Yeah.
Um, I believe she worked at a vet clinic or some kind of grooming. I think it was a vet clinic, and Michael worked there, and that's how she met him.
Was he still with Sarah, his first wife,
Yes.
during that time? Okay, so it was like a mutual affair thing. Okay.
Yeah.
What was your first thoughts when you met Michael about him?
So I had talked to Michael through video chat and phone at first. And my experience with him the first time was not very, I was not happy about it. I was still like, oh, she had those children and she had never been intimate. I couldn't put it in my back of my head how she had children. I just saw her as my sweet, innocent little sister. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it was always a joke of how innocent and, stuff she was. And the first thing that he ever said to me was something very sexual about him and Casey. And it really, really upset me and was very awkward. So the first time we actually physically met, the first thing he said to me is, oh, you're the sister that wants to kick my butt. And that was our first time meeting. So yeah, it was a little weird, a little awkward. He was very, I would say, like snooty, very standoffish. And I am just the complete opposite. So it was, yeah, it
Yeah.
was really awkward.
And during their relationship, did you have any concerns about how he was treating her or how she was treating him?
Actually, embarrassingly, no, I did not have any kind of inkling that anything was going wrong. My sister is like me when it comes to when there's problems at home. You don't want to vent to people and tell them about your problems because you don't want them to judge your loved one on a moment of anger. They might have said something or done something out of anger, and you don't want somebody to judge, so you keep it in house. That's how Casey was. I'm the same way. When it came to hearing anything, we never heard anything. And when it come to seeing things, when they would come to visit, because I live in Indiana, and they would come up from Florida a majority of the time to visit, or when our dad would go on life support. And he would open the car door for her. He would take care of the kids. He would feed the kids, change the kids. She'd be off doing her thing. And I mean, he just seemed like, I'm sad to say, but like the perfect husband and father for everybody. I actually made a comment to the person that I was with at the time, like, why can't you be more like Michael? Open my door, and that it bothers me so much to remember those things, but it seemed like the perfect little relationship. It seemed like she was truly happy. The kids, especially Preston and Mercalli, were all about him. So it looked like the perfect little family from the outside.
Do you think that it's a little bit like a narcissist showing their good side for family?
Casey, when it comes to her, I call her like a chameleon. And I mean that as in like she wants everybody to like her and she wants everybody to, be happy and not upset. So she would put on the persona and that everything was okay and that she, was in this group and this group because she just liked to be liked. But Michael did not have a problem being snooty or seeming like he was better than everybody. That was the only thing that he truly showed. Like he did not cover that. So, but with them as a family, I couldn't tell you if it was just him faking it for us. If he did, it was really good because you didn't see anything from the kids. When he'd walk up to the kids and go to touch their arm, they didn't flinch, cower from him or anything. So he would have had to be really good at it.
You look at the YouTube, she has a YouTube channel and it's all about her kids on there basically. And I watched the interactions between Michael and the kids, and he plays the part of the doting father. He seems quiet, but he plays the part. And I just kept thinking whilst watching the videos, how can you do this when this is how you're acting right now?
Yeah, that's what you see in those YouTube videos is what we saw.
Right.
And when it all happened, and my mom put in for the missing and endangered, she automatically said, he's killed her. He's killed her. And Brandy was like, there's no way. We all thought maybe they ran away and he got in trouble again. Because he had previously, once they were working at the vet clinic, he had got in trouble with the law because he had, from what I understand, had stolen money, a gun, a car, Casey's money out of her bank account, and he had fled. And he got a slap on the wrist for that stuff.
Wow, I didn't know
And when
about
that happened, we thought that's what happened. We never thought, our first thought was like, oh yeah, he's killed her. We never thought the kids for sure. So that was our first thought. So once we found out, like, we thought we'd find the kids at his mom's or at somebody else's house or something. But yeah, the way he was with them, I would have never expected it. Especially, he was very close to Preston. I mean, extremely close to Preston. You would think that, I mean, he called him daddy. He held on to him all the time. Mercalli was a daddy's girl, big time. I just don't understand to hurt a person and then it being a child, and then your own children and the way
Yeah.
he did. I can't understand it, and I'm glad that I can't.
Yeah.
Because if I could understand it, I would be just like him. And to just be able to talk about it like he did, and the details, I don't. I'll never be able to understand that.
And I'm glad that you don't. And I think that for me personally, and for a lot of people who follow true crime, that is the reason we do, is because we cannot fathom how someone can be so vile. It just, it repulses us. And I think I hate to use this word, but we're fascinated with how this can happen because we're so horrified.
Oh, I'm a huge armchair detective kind of person and true crime, and I watch court TV. I watch everything. I always have. I've always thought that it was the coolest thing that you could catch somebody by slobber on an envelope
Yeah.
and they did horrible crime, and to put somebody away for their crimes or to get somebody innocent out for somebody else's crime. You know what I mean? An innocent person. So I've always been fascinated by it. But I will tell you, being a person that does watch the real stuff, knowing the difference between all the, I mean, I like the other shows that are, fake, but knowing the actual real stuff, when the details did come out, I will say the fact that it was my family made it a lot harder because you knew what a lot of the stuff entailed, what your
Yeah.
body had done, how long stuff took, how, that kind of messed with me because I was so into them. I still am. But I will say that that messed with me quite a bit because I knew what a lot of that stuff entailed. But I completely understand why people are fascinated with it. I really do because I'm the same way. But it does change your perspective a little bit when you're on the other side.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really great point that you make, that because you know all of the stuff, you know what it actually entails and
Hmm.
how violent it actually is.
Yeah.
It does
Um,
make it a lot harder.
I struggled with Casey, of course. But the one I struggled with the most would have to be Cameron. Cameron was extremely difficult for me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, all of them, the thought of it, most of them being of the age to wonder, like fight for their life, wonder what's going on. Why is this person that I love doing what they're doing? And then going into the physical part of it, like I said, a lot of the details when you watch shows and get into the crime stuff. You you just know what happens after this time frame and what your body does and reacts to with that. And yeah.
So unfortunately, you also lost your mum, Nikki, after Casey as well, but which I'm so sorry about. You've been through so
uh,
much.
yeah, we lost our mom and then 7 months later lost our dad.
I
um
was about to say you've
yeah,
lost
so
almost lost
um,
everyone apart from your sister, Brandy.
yeah, well, our family on that side, we had lost my mom's sister in 17, her brother in 18, my sister and the kids in 19, and then my mom and her dad in 21.
Hmm.
So we hadn't had a break but 1 year. It was, I would say, the difference between that makes Casey's a little bit harder and my mom's is not seeing them. You know how you can say your goodbyes in the casket, you could see them, you see it with your own eyes. I think just getting, picking up ashes, it was just hard to realize since they lived in a different state that they're actually gone. So you forget for a split second, you would forget in the morning and something would happen. You're like, oh, I can't wait to tell Casey. I'm going to send her this. And then it was like, oh, and it would hit you like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's
So
been,
rough.
been pretty rough for that side of the family.
Yeah.
Quite a
Well,
few
you're
years. Yeah.
incredibly strong to have to go through all of that. I mean, I
Yeah.
would have loved to have interviewed your mum because it sounds like she had her like mama bear gut instinct when
Yeah.
they went missing. And I would have loved to have asked her if there was any signs. I don't know if you know if on her behalf, did she see any signs herself? Did she ever mention anything?
Okay. So here's what I was told by my mother. My mom, once it happened, Michael and my mom never got along, but they're both very headstrong, stubborn people. They did not get along at all. And so my mom never hid that. They they would be okay so they could be around each other and the kids. So it wasn't like every day they were at each other's throats. But when they did, it was a pretty big blowout fight. But my mom swore that she knew once they put him missing and endangered, she swore like he killed her, like he knew. But she didn't expect the kids.
Yeah.
I will say that. She wasn't surprised by Casey, but she was very shocked and surprised about the kids. Brandy will tell you that she didn't see anything when they lived together. And you got to think they're in their darkest moments. They're their real selves when they're at home. And they can't hide everything from people living together, especially as small of apartments that they have lived together in. So that's when you do get heated, there's not a whole lot you could hide living together as long as they have. I guarantee if my sister would have seen something, Brandy, she would have said something.
Yeah.
And she was like, there's no way there's no way Michael hurt her. They probably just ran together or they're out somewhere or broke down or that's, she didn't, her first thought was not he did something. So the two different sides, both of them lived with Casey and Michael for a very long time. So I don't know. I can just tell you from what I've seen personally, I didn't see anything.
Yeah.
And so for Brandy to say she didn't, she would have definitely said so. But yeah, my mom definitely thought that he was not a good husband. She did not want them to be together.
Do you think Casey confided in her?
I would not think that she would confide in my mom as much as she would have my cousin Janine.
So there are claims that Casey and Michael were abusive towards each other. You wouldn't know anything about that then, would you?
Well, I can tell you, it wouldn't surprise me if there was something. And I only say that because I'm not going to lie. Like I told my family, I'm not going to lie at court. I'm going to be 100% honest with whatever I'm asked. We're a lot like our mother, and our mother could be very vindictive. Our mother could be very aggressive. And we had a lot of those, I don't know, attributes, maybe. I don't know if that's the word. Or, so we had a tendency, if somebody hurt our feelings, we would go for your feels. If somebody put their hands on us, we're going to put our hands on you. I'm not sure how aggressive or violent they ever got, because like I said, I never saw anything wrong with their relationship. But I do know Casey and my mom and myself and Brandy, we all have kind of the same outlook on relationships and act the same way. So I can tell you she had the ability to get vindictive and aggressive, if that makes sense.
So during the time that Casey was missing, when did you start to realize something was wrong?
To be honest, it was around my birthday because, and I'm not sure how many people know, because we got a lot of flack that we didn't. They're like, well, how didn't you know? In 6 weeks, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, what people don't understand is he was texting people.
Yeah.
We had no idea. Because Casey, the majority of the time, was hard to get a hold of. Either in the beginning she was out of minutes or she was just always busy. So nobody thought anything of it when she would just text or something. But the reason I was worried is because my birthday came around and she didn't post anything on Facebook. And since we joined Facebook, she never missed a year. So that was weird. But there was hurricanes and her phone was messed up. So I didn't really put too much thought into that. But when September 12th came around, it was Cameron's 10th birthday. She hadn't posted anything.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. I mean, obviously something happened, but it wouldn't have mattered what was going on. If she was alive and well, she would have posted it. I don't care if she would have had to borrow somebody's phone, go to the library. Doesn't matter what she would have had to do. She would have posted something for that. So that's when Janine and I were communicating. And then we're like, okay, you call your side, I'll call mine. We started talking to siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, everybody. And nobody had physically heard from her. So we were like, oh, okay, something's weird.
Yeah.
And mind you, at that time, I hadn't talked to my mom for 11 years. So I didn't know she had the girls. I didn't know she had the girls for 2 weeks. I didn't know that Richard had the boys for 2 weeks. So if I would have known stuff like that, I think I would have caught on a little bit earlier. Especially Casey not picking Ayana up on her first birthday. That would have been an indicator right there. I wouldn't have let the kids even go. Casey wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
She would have been there. Back surgery. It was a horrible, horrible surgery for her. And she was still video chatting those babies.
Yeah.
So that would have been a little bit more of a sign to me, but not posting was the sign that I got because I didn't know everything else.
Well, I mean, the other thing is that how on earth would you have known that had happened? It's not conceivable in our brains, even from a true crime perspective. We never think
Yeah,
it's going to happen to us.
that's exactly right. You
You,
never
yeah.
think it's close to home.
And he was texting, pretending to be her. He was also going, the kids were here and there. And so it would have looked
Yeah.
semi-normal, just that no one had physically seen her or video chatted her or called with her.
Yeah. But you're exactly right. Nobody's head went to that space at that time.
So at that point, when you're sort of realizing no one spoke to her, was it your mum that then decided to call the police for the welfare check? How did that come about?
Yes. So Janine actually called my mom because again, I hadn't talked to her. So my mom had called and I didn't know my mom had called. So I had also called and they said that my mom had called. So a couple of us were actually calling to try to get the welfare check. But yeah, my mom, after Janine called her and was like, something's up, something's going on. The first person to kind of start to go that way that something's wrong was Janine because they, like I said, they were close.
Yeah.
They were extremely close and visited often, confided in each other. So she was the first one to really hone in on it and think that something was wrong. And she got it started with bugging my mom.
Yeah. So your mum calls, does the welfare check, then I believe the police go straight to the house. And is that correct?
Yeah, there was a little confusion with that. Actually, they did go straight to the house. They did bring vehicles there and stuff like that. And so there was this, I get a call. My mom was like, they found her. She's gone. They found her. Then I get a call back and they're like, no, there was nothing in the house. The house was empty. There was a body found in the woods. And I'm like, oh, it's not her. They were like, no, it's not her. And then I get a call back saying it was her. So
Wow.
what the confusion was with that is because when the police did the welfare check, the neighbors saw them and then put it out there that a bunch of stuff had happened and that somebody had been found. So there was confusion within them being out there just doing the check to begin with. And so my mom and us, all of us, we had a roller coaster. They're like, yep, we found her. No, we didn't. Yes, we did. And so that was really rough because we
That's
thought, oh,
awful.
well, yeah, it was really rough. And then that was on the 15th because we
Yeah.
put it in September 14th. The 15th, she was actually found because of his accident that he had. About 2 o'clock in the morning, the cops came to my mom's house and said the kids weren't okay either. So he had told them on the 15th and they found them in the morning.
On the 16th.
Yes, they had came to the house at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning to tell her. So they
So
had probably found them around 10, 11 o'clock at night on the 15th and then reported it on the 16th.
So the way that this all goes down, to be honest with you, it would make an amazing movie. And I mean that with no disrespect, but
Yeah.
the fact that he gets into a car accident. Well, first of all, a witness reports him driving really fast
Yeah.
and notices the number plate and is like, "Oh, hey, this is a bit strange," and knows about the missing. I believe she knew about the missing kids and I think even the car from the reports that I've read, and she reports it, and then he gets caught because I believe he was drinking and driving and being erratic. And then it all sort of tumbles out. It's just, it's so wild.
Actually, I don't think he was drinking. I think that was a rumor because there was bottles in the car,
Right.
but I don't actually think he was intoxicated at the time. I believe he was speeding and lost control because of, I believe, those things that they have in Georgia and Florida, those big cylinders under the road for water to go through. I believe somehow he hit that off the edge a little bit. And that's how he went down into it and totaled the whole front of the van. It
Wow.
was totaled in the front. But yeah, if I'm thinking right, he wasn't intoxicated.
So they were just empty bottles from other.
Yeah. But it was crazy to that's how he was caught,
Yeah.
and for him to just nonchalantly, hey, you might as well put handcuffs on me, I've got
Yeah.
a body in the car. It's just for him to be like that. I will say, and this might be upsetting to other people, especially my family, but I'm actually grateful to Michael for letting us have the children back. Because if he wouldn't have told us where the children were, they were in such a desolate part of the woods. Who knows how long, if at all, we would have found them, you know?
Yeah. And
So,
he had just put them there.
yes, he had put them there because of the missing and endangered.
Right.
And then 9 miles away from that county into a different county, that's where he got into the wreck, which is why we had two coroners on the case, one for the children, one for Casey. Because I talked to both of them, and the one did all four of the children.
Oh boy, ugh,
Hmm.
that poor person.
Yeah, he was. They were both males, and they said the man that did the children, he said that's one of the hardest cases he's ever worked on.
Yeah.
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 They were both very polite, very matter of fact people. They talked very scientific about it. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
very. They were very polite, but it was very, like I said, matter of fact. It wasn't like when I'm talking to you now about it. It
Yeah.
was very like to the point. This is what happened. This is what happened. And I had to talk to them because my mom was a basket case.
So obviously that day that you find out and then you don't find out and then it's her, it's not her. I cannot imagine going through that. That's just horrendous. And then how was it when you found out not only is it Casey, but it's, four children as well?
Like I said, sadly, domestic violence with a man and a woman that doesn't shock you. It was sad because it was our sister. So hearing that she was gone was the sad part, but the shock of domestic violence doesn't. You hear about it all the time,
Yeah.
So it didn't shock us when we heard about it in that sense of it being against her. But when we found out about the kids, we honestly thought, oh, there's no way. As close as he was, especially to, like I said, Preston and Cameron, or Preston and McCallie, we just did not think that. We thought maybe dropped him off at Sarah's, his ex-wife, or over at his mom's, or at a fire station. Like that's where our head went. We never expected, even my mom did not expect the kids to be harmed.
Yeah.
So when we got that news, I mean, obviously it was devastating, but it was a shock,
Yeah.
absolute shock. The up and down roller coaster with Casey, that made it hard because when we finally did get the news that she was found, it's like we couldn't believe it. They were wrong once. They have to
Yeah.
be wrong this time.
Yep.
But, and my mom didn't, when they were asking about her tattoos and stuff, it didn't click to my mom at first that they were asking about the tattoos and asking for her DNA, for the kids and stuff. Like it didn't click to her. And it was kind of like in a denial phase because they're like, oh, they're wrong once. They're definitely wrong now.
Yeah.
And especially with the kids. My mom, especially over McCallie, she was extremely close with McCallie. You would think McCallie was hers the way she acted. So that hurt her more than anything, losing McCallie.
And
She
I
did
think,
not expect it.
yeah, I think as well, like, what are your thoughts on the fact that obviously he killed Casey, and then you can't sort of say that it was like a heat of the moment thing, because then he goes back well, four other times, but on two different occasions for the children. Like,
Right.
how do you wrap your head around that? Like, I guess you
Well, it's
don't.
like I don't understand how you couldn't just run.
Yeah.
Leave him somewhere. Take him to your mom's. Why he didn't just run? You most likely are going to go down for it. Why not run?
Plus,
But his
the boys were
explanation
with
about
their father, weren't they, for a little while? Why
they were
couldn't
with their
you
dad
just
for 2 weeks, and the girls were
why?
with my mom and Brandy for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he picked up Ayanna on her first birthday. Her and McCallie. Then he sit with Richard. So with Richard, I believe, out in the parking lot, talking and being like, "Oh yeah, I know how it is. No wonder you and Casey, blah blah blah." Happy-go-lucky buddies. Even hugged the guy.
Wow.
Hugged Richard. Said that they have a beer together, and then went and killed his children.
I want to move on to just after it happened, and I want to talk a little bit about the stuff that we as true crime people don't really hear about. So, after this happened, did you have any media reaching out to you?
Media is in like news.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I actually shut it down where people couldn't look up my Facebook because it was so bad. We had CNN, Inside Edition. We had some pretty big, hefty names reach out to us. And I did one interview, which my mom asked me to do because there was hundreds of GoFundMe's already up, and we hadn't done none of them. And so we went on to at least announce that the GoFundMe's were fake, to not to donate. It was scams, and to let them know how the family was doing. But yes, we had quite a few. And after the first interview with the questions that they were asking, I was just not okay with doing them after that point.
Yeah. Were the media being respectful when they were contacting you, or just really insensitive?
It was pretty insensitive because, I mean, it was like the day we found out. And then the questions that they would ask, well, how do you feel about Michael? What would you say to Michael? And it was like, what? Like, is that really who I want to talk
Yeah.
about right now?
Yeah. I laugh because
um,
that's just ridiculous.
yeah, it was like, well, if you want this interview to happen, those are not the questions I would ask right now. Because I mean, what do you say to someone where you're like, oh God, I hope he took her first so she didn't have to see her kids suffer. And then you're like, oh gosh, I hope the kids didn't see it. Hopefully he took that. It's like, hopefully they went quick. And when you got those thoughts in the back of your head, what do you think about that kind of person? That
Yeah.
question was pretty obvious. So in my opinion, they were insensitive about it. There could have been a different way to word it. There could have been a totally different question. So we kind of ventured away from doing interviews and stuff like that for a little bit.
And the police obviously, did they give you, I think they did give you information about like a victim's advocate, and do they offer counseling or anything like that?
To be honest, a lot of the things that people would tell us about, there wasn't a whole lot from the sheriff's department. There wasn't a whole lot of communication because they couldn't talk about an ongoing investigation with not even us. So a lot of the things we found out from social media, people going and finding out the information. People tried to talk to us like we were inside men. And it was like, we're actually getting more information from you guys. People like you, people like,
Wow.
and and so it was like it wasn't there wasn't a whole lot of communication.
So there was no
Um
support at all. There was no, did they offer
Not really.
counseling or anything?
No counseling. Any of the things that was brought, it was usually any of this stuff, it was for the victims of the violence. It wasn't for the family.
Right.
So
Okay.
any of the places that we found, it was like, oh, we can't help you because you're not the one that it was done to. It was like, okay, there needs to be, I would say, at least for the immediate family, being
Yeah.
siblings, parents, you would think there'd be a little bit more, especially with something like that, there would be a little bit more for, the family of the victims to help out with stuff.
Speaking of support, did the community at all support you at the end?
I did have a GoFundMe to get to my sister because they thought I was going to have to identify the kids and my sister, because my mother could not. So I actually had to go down there in the emergency. And yes, people did pull together when I put my GoFundMe up to get me down there. Thankfully, I did not have to because of the tattoos and the DNA, that my mother gave. So I ended up not having to do that. But being with my sister and my mom was worth, you know, me going down there
Yeah, you need
and
that.
talking to the coroners and everything. So I was definitely grateful that they, my friends and family and random people helped me with that, with the
Yeah.
GoFundMe.
So you talked about seeing things online instead of through the police or prosecution. Did you see like the body cam that was released or like interrogations? Did you see all of that because of true crime stuff instead of the police?
Yes, everything that we saw, even pictures that were released from one of the coroners, was leaked. Those weren't supposed to be released. Some of the pictures of the children and Casey of when they were found, somebody actually leaked those. Any of the reports, some of the court dates, nothing was discussed with us through the sheriff's department. But like I said, they really couldn't either because of it being an ongoing investigation. So I don't really blame them for that. But some of the stuff that was public and was being released, they could have given us a heads up, I think.
So were you exposed to any negativity online because of what happened?
I was shocked, to be honest, of how negative people were toward Casey. Victim blaming, you know, telling a few lies in her life, the one to point those out, like, oh, saying she lied about being raised Amish. Who cares? Is that what got her killed? No.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that, where people were bringing stuff like that up. Or there was a specific woman that I had an issue with when we put in the missing and endangered, and she made a comment under that post that Marion County Sheriff's Office put up for that and said, well, as long as the kids aren't with Casey and Michael, they're probably safe. And we hadn't found out about Casey or the kids yet. But to post something like that, because she knew her, they worked together. I don't care if you worked with her and you didn't like her. I don't care. To post something like that, they obviously don't put up flyers of missing and endangered people if they don't think it's serious. Willing to victim blame and say mean things like that. That really saddened me with a lot of, humanity. It was like, are you serious? There's kids involved. There's, regardless if she told white lies or lies, she's still a victim. She's still human. And that was very sad to see.
My wonder is why are we going to trial? I understand that everyone has the right to go to trial, but I'm wondering what his angle is because he's pled not guilty, even though he did confess to the murders, and his
Right.
confession is what he said in his confession lines up to all of the evidence that
Right.
we've seen. So I'm wondering why. Why would he plead not guilty?
Which, and that shocked us as well, because if you knew Michael, you would expect him to go into self-preservation mode, which is to plead guilty to not get the death penalty. So
Exactly.
I don't know. We have not been told, oh, he's going for insanity or anything like that. We've never been told, but it's been rumored to be like PTSD and stuff like that. When I was asked questions from the defense team, they were bringing up my history, which is foster care and abuse. And so when they brought that up, they think they're trying to go down an angle of how he was raised.
Right.
And I don't know why he thinks my information would affect his. If they bring up my stuff of being in foster care and abuse, it's not going to help his case because I went through horrible, horrible things, and I don't use violence toward my children at all. If you're saying that you did this because you were raised this way, well, I'm proving different. I had it just as bad, if not worse, and I haven't done anything like you have. So I don't know what angle they're going for, but we've found out quite a bit more news that I didn't actually know. I found out some news once I did my interview with the prosecuting attorney. There's actually two separate, you have the trial,
Yeah.
and then you actually have, that's the guilty phase. And then after he is guilty or not guilty, then they go to what they call the penalty phase, which is death penalty or not.
Yep.
So you have to be there December 5th and then January 5th. Just having dates, I think, made a huge difference, though. Even back when they gave it months and months and months ago, just having a date to kind of, I hate to say look forward to, but in a sense, it's, you're looking forward to seeing him pay for his crime. So
Exactly. How are you feeling with the trial being so close?
I'm, like I said, I hate to say excited, but I am. Because of losing my mom and dad so close and them not technically getting to see justice here on earth, it's like you wonder, like, oh gosh, what if something happens to me? What if something happens to him and we don't get to see justice? So it was very scary to think like that, but you do. You're like, oh my gosh. And then once we were given like an actual date, even though it was months away at that time, it was like hey, we can kind of like, breathe. It's coming. It's here. There's a date. So I would say personally for me, it was extremely exciting to just know that it's progressing, it's happening.
Yeah.
Because sadly, it's like you don't hear anything about it. Not that I'm not looking for fame or anything like that. I just want people to know this
Yeah.
happened to this. This is happening like crazy in Florida.
Yep. It
Like
is.
it's not a shock to see it on the news anymore. Oh, another family, a whole family died. And sadly, it's not a shock. With the sheriff's department, when it happened, they went out and arrested all of the people that had warrants out for their arrest for domestic violence because of Casey.
Really?
Yes. That's one thing I will say that was very, very awesome of that county. They went out and served all the warrants and caught, I think, like 10 people
Oh,
that had warrants
wow.
out for their arrest for domestic violence after Casey. So it was really cool.
Oh, that's incredible. That's really amazing that she's made an impact. With this trial being a death penalty, possibly, how are you feeling about that and about the sentence?
Okay, so this is where my mom and I and a few of our family members differ. My mom wanted the death penalty. She was wholeheartedly about the death penalty, which will be said at court in the impact statements. Myself, I do not agree with it. I do not want it. Now, do I think that some people deserve the death penalty? Yes. But me personally, as the victim's family member, I don't like that he gets to pick a meal. He gets to eat that meal. He gets to say something and have the last word. And then he goes to sleep like I would a family pet. I'm not okay with it. So, me personally, I do not want it. And I'm really sad to go against the prosecuting attorney because they are definitely fighting for it, but I don't like it because with him being in there, that's justice for me. Having to wait a year to 30 years for him to be executed. What if I'm no longer here? What if, we can't go there and see it? And what if he says something ignorant? He doesn't see us. It's a one-way mirror, from what I understand. He wouldn't even see us there. So what's the justice in that? So me personally, I do not want the death penalty. But my mom does. I don't believe my sister does. My other sibling, Casey's sibling as well, she's back and forth with it. She sees why you would and sees why, why you shouldn't. But I think a majority of us don't want it, to be honest. Whether he's thinking about, and people are like, well, I don't want to pay taxes for it. If you're going to pay taxes, I'd rather pay taxes to let him sit and think. Whether he's thinking of the horrific crime that he did, or if he's even thinking about, crap, I got caught. I don't care. He's thinking about it. And that's all that matters to me. I have to think about it every day. My job that I got right after it happened, I could not, literally, I was working with zip ties and totes all day. People don't understand the day-to-day stuff that it takes away. Something as simple as using a zip tie. Something as simple as putting your Christmas stuff in a tote. You think about it every day. And those days when it first happened, you wake up and you forget about it for a split second. Because it's like, it's so wild, you can't believe it. And then the reality to hit you every single time was excruciating. Absolutely excruciating. And to see my kids grow up and get social media accounts and TikTok, something as simple as that, those kids will never experience. My son graduated. Casey's kids will never get to do that. Never be able to have children. Casey would have been an amazing grandma and will never get to see that. And people don't think about that stuff, I don't think, as not as much as they should. It takes away so much, and people think that it gets easier the longer it is. And it's not that it gets easier. It just, I think that you have the ability to push it down a little bit more each day.
You learn how to carry it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said, because that's what it is. And for the first 6 months, I was in my bed. I'd get up to feed my children and then go back to bed. I didn't get out of my bed. I had to deal with, my son is named after her. 14, I promised her that I would name my first kid after her, and I did. And to hear the name Casey every day, my name's Sarah. So I had to hear that name. My kid's dad is named Michael. So to hear those names together every day was hard. Something as simple as a name.
And you weren't offered any counseling to help with this at all.
We were not offered counseling, no.
It just gets me.
Yeah, that there was no offer of that. There was no, I've got more counseling for my mom being on hospice. They reached out to me for weeks when it first happened, but a year later, they still reached out to me on my mom's anniversary. And that was hospice.
Yeah.
So I was like shocked that here my mom died on hospice and I'm getting offered counseling, but my sister and her children were brutally taken away and nothing. I truly believe that there should be more for the victim's family, especially the immediate family.
I want to end on talking about, we talked a little bit about the fact that unfortunately you haven't had a lot of assistance with help after this horrendous tragedy, but with the trial coming up, you're not actually able to attend it because there's no funding for that, is there?
Okay, so being a witness, some of your stuff is paid for. But unfortunately, especially the second half when he is found to be death penalty or not, I will have no assistance whatsoever. And that is almost the important part for the impact statements where they actually hear from us. And there's no help to get to that. They have a limited income. I don't blame the prosecuting attorney for that. That's not their fault. They have a limited income. There's tons of witnesses they have to deal with, and take care of and pay for. So I don't blame anybody for it, but I really think that there should be more assistance with that, especially when the parents are gone.
Yeah.
If you look at it, if it's not my sister, me, my aunt, if us three for sure we're not going, who would be on Casey's side? You know what I mean? And I think that there should be specific groups, specifically for stuff like that, you know, to where they can make sure that the victim's family, if there is any, can be there and be their voice.
So are
Um,
you covered for December, like just finances aspect of it?
um,
You fully
partially,
covered? Partially.
not fully, partially, I am covered with that. But when it comes to stuff that you would need for a day-to-day basis and stuff, that's not, covered. Even something as simple as, and people don't think about something as simple as this. I am a single mom of four, and it is a day-to-day basis, whether it's up or down for me and my children. I don't have something as simple as an outfit. You know what I mean? People don't
Yeah.
think of something as minuscule as that. I can't obviously wear my tank tops and shorts that I wore on a day-to-day basis to a court. And so, like, that's the kind of thing that you have to think of. I have to look presentable. I have to, stuff like that. And you're racking your brain, like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to make sure that I have clothes to wear every day and then be able to have food to put in my belly? And then to, you know what I mean? And you're lost, even with something as simple as that, because your mind is already all over the place. Because my main focus is like, how am I going to react when I see this man? Which is my main
Yep.
thought throughout everything. As soon as everything happened, what am I going to do when I see him? Has been the first thought of every day. And then you go to something as silly as, I don't have a blouse and pants. I don't have shoes. I don't, you know, and
Well, it's
that's,
not silly though, because I don't know, are you a witness?
I am.
So it's not silly because you want to look presentable when you're a witness, when you're called to the stand. You're absolutely right. You cannot wear a tank top up there. It doesn't look good to the jury.
Right.
So you do.
And
It's not a silly thing. It's a really important thing.
like if I flew out there or drove out there, either the flight or gas would be taken care of, I believe. I don't know if they take care of it first or if they reimburse you. I'm not sure which one. If it's reimbursement, I don't have the money
Do they
to
cover
get
like a
down there and be
hotel?
reimbursed. The hotel, I believe, would be taken care of, but it would be taken care of. See, this is where it there's a happy and sadness to it. I will be paid for the time that I am the witness, which is the first day. So my stay for that night would be covered.
That's it.
But if I want to stay for the rest of the trial, once I've testified, it would no longer be, you know what I mean? I felt sad and kind of petty even bringing it up after, the situation, but people don't think about the little things that you have to think about,
Well, because
making sure that I have a nice blouse and pants and shoes. I wear flip-flops. My money goes to my children
yeah,
for their school clothes, for their school equipment. They are 100% presentable and on their best. I don't put that on myself. I don't buy stuff for myself like that. So I didn't even think about it till they were like, yeah, you're going to have to go up front. And I'm like, I don't even have a blouse.
yeah,
I have no dress clothes. Kind of lost.
yeah,
You look at it from kind of like an outside perspective, but me, I'm sitting here like, where do I start? Where do I
yeah,
go? Who do
yeah.
I ask? Um, and that's where I struggle with it. Yeah, I put up a GoFundMe and have had no activity. And I get it, times are hard, but it's like you look at some of those GoFundMe's and it's like you're donating to these. And I think my mom kind of sadly gave a bad rep for our family with GoFundMe's because she was like for her teeth, for a car, for this, for that. it was 5 GoFundMe's, and that's not how I am. I put it up specifically for what it's used for, and every cent is used for what it is supposed to be.
I'm
I
hoping
just
that this
want to
interview
see
will help.
justice.
Yeah, I really
That's all I
hope
want.
that people will see through this that it's you're not you're not asking for $1 million. You just want to,
No.
unfortunately, be in the same room as the man that did this and see him placed in handcuffs
Yes.
at the
Just to
end.
hear guilty. I have to point him out. I
Yeah,
have to describe what he is wearing.
yeah,
When they say, well, okay, who did she marry after Richard? One of the things I have to do is point at Michael and say, oh, it's this man right here wearing the blue suit on this side of the defense table. And people were like, a suit? And they were like, duh, it's going to be an orange jumpsuit.
nope,
They're like, why do you have to point that out? And I was like, no, he doesn't get to wear his prison or his jail suit. He is going to be in a nice outfit. Probably think about it. Going back to the clothes, he is
yeah,
going to be in a nicer outfit than me. He will have a suit every day. And if I was to take and wear what I have and own in my closet, the man that killed my sister and her children will look better and be more presentable than me. And that's what people don't think about. He's not going to be in an orange jumpsuit. He's not going to be in the flip flops that they give them at jail. He is going to have nice shoes, nice clothes.
Summing all of this up, is there anything that you want people to know about Casey and the kids that hasn't been put out there? Is there anything that's happened that you want to talk about?
I was asked to me, one of the most ignorant questions. I was asked, and I don't think he meant it this way, but I was asked by someone on his team, the defense attorneys, asked me to talk about the kids' personalities. What were they like? Were they good kids? And I said, I'm 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 just taken back by that comment when I heard it. And it was like in my head I'm thinking, if they weren't, do we just pack it up and go home? He gets to go home. Ayana was a year old. How could she be bad? Oh, she pooped in a diaper. She must be bad. It's like, what could she have done to be bad? You know what I mean? So when
Yeah.
I was asked the question, something as simple, were they good children? That blew my mind. But I will say Casey was all about her children. And she was I don't think it was put out how accomplished she was. There was a lot of hate toward her, but people don't understand this woman graduated. She did college. She was very, very accomplished in any job that she did. She provided for her children. She provided for herself. And I hate that that's not out there. She was very accomplished with her stuff. She should have been proud for everything that she had done. And the children, they were polite. They had manners. They had personalities. Just good, wholehearted. I can't describe, like, they were just such good kids. They cared about people. If they saw somebody crying, are you okay? Why are you crying? As simple and young as 4. Preston could see that. Mercalli, and even Mercalli, she would sing to make you feel better. She wanted to make you laugh at 2. The Bee Gees, funny. She loved the Bee Gees. A 2-year-old was obsessed with the Bee Gees.
Oh my God, I love that.
It was insane how obsessed she was with the Bee Gees. My mom and her would jam out to the to the Bee Gees. I have the CD. that they actually played all the time. You know, the cute little stuff that they would do. They would be singing Christmas songs while pounding on a Halloween bucket. You know, they're just happy children. They were happy and loved. And there's the one video of Casey and Cameron in front of a huge Christmas tree, twirling around. And that is one of my favorite moments out of any video that I've seen of Casey is that moment. The love that she had for her children, but especially her first one, because of how hard it was to have him and all the surgeries she had to go through to even get pregnant to have him. The bond and love that they had was beautiful. It was a very beautiful thing. And I hope people, once they hear about the case, they go and look at her YouTube videos and see how much she loved these kids and how much they loved her. But truly, they're just good kids. And I'm sad that smart kids, Cameron was smart as a whip. And I'm sad that we won't ever get to see what he could have accomplished. So, but I just want to say, like, thank you for reaching out and having this side of it put out where people get to see this side and not just what's swirling around on most of the social medias.
Yep.
Because the victim blaming and the all the horrible stuff that goes on in it, it's just really sad. And the fact that you show kind of from the inside what really goes on, simple things, like I said, day-to-day things that change, and
Yeah.
the stuff that the people go through that are left here, people don't get to see that, and they don't get to hear the good things and the things that actually matter.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I'm I'm honored to do it, to be honest with you. I want to show the other side for sure. And I hope it will make a difference to how people react to true crime,
Yeah,
and stop sensationalizing and speculating all the time.
there's way more that goes into it than just what they see.
Yep.
There's so much more. Even if I did not get one donation out of this and I got more awareness, I'm happy with just that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Donations, of course, would be appreciated. Don't get me wrong, but that is not why I did this interview. It is to put and the thing is even counseling. That is going to be a huge thing for me. I have a very hard time with counseling, but I got to the point where I had to, especially after losing my mom and dad, right after Casey. It was like I was doing counseling for that. And then it was like, man, this too. And after seeing what I'm going to see at that trial, there's no way that I wouldn't have to have counseling for that. Because I've seen a little bit. I have, but there's a lot more that I know I'm going to see that is way worse than what I've seen. And so there's no way that I'm going to be able to sleep and not have some kind of counseling. I check up on his children. She is Sarah, his ex-wife, is on my Facebook. I communicate with her often about the children. I talk to his mom. I talk to his sister. I don't treat them. His mom actually thanked me for treating her with any ounce of respect because she doesn't get it from anybody.
And see, that to me also breaks my heart because
Mhm.
all of those, I mean, even the kids, none of them are responsible for his actions.
Right.
They shouldn't be treated like they did anything.
Right. No matter what she did to him
fault.
in his childhood,
Yeah.
regardless.
Yeah, they're victims too. Completely different type of
It is.
victim.
Yes.
They have to now live with this, and that's his fault. He's caused that.
I'm assuming the shame that she feels is probably tremendous.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she lost grandchildren, just like my mom did. And that's how I look at it. She lost the son. I couldn't possibly imagine what goes on in that woman's head. but I'm not going to disrespect her. That's just not who I am. So I just chose to go down that path for not only Casey, but for my own sanity.
Yeah.
I can't go down any other path.
How one person and their actions can ripple effect into so many lives. Just,
Yes.
it's astounding.
Mm-hmm.
He
It
ruined,
really is.
He ruined and he shook and he destroyed a lot of people's lives. And he probably doesn't. It sounds like he doesn't understand that or grasp that.
Yeah.
Take care, and
You too.
I'm hoping that we can work something out so that you can get there for
I
both.
appreciate the support, and
Yeah.
I appreciate you making, awareness. It's huge for me. So
Of course. All right. You have a good night.
you too, hun.
Okay.
Thank
bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Casey's sister Sarah sharing her story. If you want to follow along with this case, I would recommend that you come and join our Facebook group for the case. I will leave a link to that in the description of the video. Sarah will also be coming back on the channel after the trial, so we can listen to her thoughts during and after those events. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you're notified of when new videos are published. If you're a loved one of a victim of a crime and would like to share your story, please reach out to me. I would be honoured to help you by giving you a platform. My contact information is in the description of the video. I do not monetize my channel, so I will not make profits off of your story. Until next time, bye for now.